Hello, wie geht's? My name is Monica Liana, and this is Books of Beauty, where I talk about books while doing my makeup. So it's that time already where you're going to do a quick little wrap up of all the books that I have consumed of the month. I'm going to try to go really quickly because this month was not the greatest. I mean, some of them was pretty good, but like for the most part, it was a lot of either stuff that I just hated or very subpar, just in general, of like I thought it was okay and that was about it. So quickly I'm gonna go. So Gillian Flynn, I ended up doing all 4 of her books. I did do a ranking slash overview video of it, so if you'd like to know more, you can go watch that video. But for the most part, Gone Girl was good. Sharp Objects was my favorite. Dark Places was pretty decent. I actually liked it. And then The Grown Up was a cool little novella. Like, that's as much as I gotta say about that. The next one is, I'm gonna go from like probably worst to like best. The worst one of the month was The Unrequited by Saffron A. Kent. Oh my gosh. I did a whole rant video last time talking about it, so I'm not gonna go too far into it, but like, this book was supposed to be a romance, and it's not. At least not in my opinion. This is about a woman who is very obsessed with her professor teacher, and she does really creepy things to try to gain his affection. And he is married, dealing with a postpartum depression wife, and he kind of just allows her to be creepy because he wants to feel something. That's pretty much the gist of it. And I forgot to mention one thing with my rant video that I thought was hilarious. So at one point in the book, he calls her on the phone. Instead of picking up the phone, she runs to his office because she lives in the barracks, I think, or something like that. She runs to his office and she's panting, and he's just like, what are you doing here? And she's like, you called me. He's like, yeah, you could have picked up the phone. She's just like, well, I just thought it would be easier if I came over here. And it's like, who does that? Who is just like, somebody's calling me, instead of picking up the phone and figuring out what it is, I'm just going to run. I'm going to sprint across campus, and I'm going to burst into his office and be like, you wanted me? And it's like, that should have been a big old red old flag right there for that professor. But apparently he thought it was cute, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, that was the worst one. The next one is Heartbreak Bay. This is the 5th book of the Stillhouse Lake series. I don't understand why this book was made. I think that how the 4th book ended was good. I don't think this book was needed. And I say that because I don't even really remember what this book was about. Another person from her ex, because if you don't know what Stillhouse Lake is, basically, it is about a woman who turns out she was married to a serial killer. She didn't know. He ended up getting busted because a accident happened, like a car accident happened that rammed into like their garage or something like that. And when it happened, there was like a dead woman in their like garage. And that's how it all happened, was that turns out he's been doing this for years. He was a serial killer. Well, he ends up going to jail, and she moves around a lot because a lot of people pretty much assume like, well, if your husband was a serial killer, you obviously knew what was going on. And she didn't know. She had no idea that her husband like that. She was kind of scared of him, but she didn't know that like he was killing females, because she apparently, I guess that garage was locked or something, so she actually never went down there. So she's never seen it. It was like voice controlled or like padded, so you couldn't hear anything, so she had no idea. But everybody assumed that she did know. And so her and her kids kind of like run around all over the place. They have new identities, and they go to this place called Stillhouse Lake, and that's kind of where they settle. And the whole thing is that her husband's trying to go after her because I think he gets out of prison. And the next few books are kind of either about him chasing her, or his fans, or his people that basically believe that like she did it, like the father, the brother, or whoever of these victims are trying to go after her. That's the whole point of like all 4 books. And granted, it does get very played out after a while, but you know, they were pretty good. Well, by the 4th one, the way they ended it, I felt was good. I'm like, okay, this is starting to get old, but you're ending it now. You're starting off anew. So when this book came out, I was actually surprised because I'm like, they don't even live at Still House anymore. They moved at the 4th one. So when this one showed up, I was kind of like, I'm kind of confused why this one is here. And it's just the same thing in a different location. And it's like, you did good. You went a little long. The 4th book was technically probably not needed, but you ended it in a way that was like, okay, I got you. You kind of wrapped things up. You know, you moved. You're now married. You like your kids are now, how do you say, becoming better kids. They're starting to understand the situation and they're growing up, blah, blah, blah. And I think she has like a new job and stuff like that. So it's like, I get it, but like, why did you need this 5th book? There was no point to this. I can't even really tell you exactly what happened other than somebody goes after them. That's it. Nothing new. You don't need to bother with this one. I mean, unless you really want to, but I'm telling you, you don't need to bother. If you've already done the first 4, the 5th one is absolutely pointless. The Maidens. Oh, I'm about to rant real quick. Just real quick, I'll try to make it quick. This sucked. I liked his other book, The Silent Patient. It was really good. This one was very anticipated because of how popular The Silent Patient was. And there's a lot of booktubers that get books before other people can get them, which is fine. I actually kind of like that they get them because then they can kind of recommend them. And it's like, ooh, if they kind of like there's a good chance that I may like it. So many people said that this book was good and this book was like twisty and turny and stuff. No, it wasn't. First of all, I don't understand what she did. She basically investigates this girl dying and then another girl dies. And she goes and investigates these deaths. Why? You're not a detective. You don't live there. You're not anything to these kids, basically, because they're like college kids. You're not anything at all. So why are you investigating? I don't understand that. And then also, if you're gonna investigate, can you like, I hate to use this term, but man the fuck up, because she kept being so scared. And first of all, she would put herself in these situations and then it would be like, is he gonna do anything? And it's just like, well then why the hell did you get in there? You could have went to a public place. Why are you seeing these people in like isolated places? Why are you putting yourself in this situation to begin with? I don't understand what you're doing. And the cops literally tell her like, stop going around, like let us do our job. And yet she keeps popping up and it's like, I don't understand what stake she has in this. And there's a lot of red herrings. There's probably like 3 different red herrings. Like this person may have done something, this person may have done something, this person may have done something. They're all red herrings, which is like, there was one that I literally didn't understand. Like I understood the 2, but there was one that I was like, what does this have to do with anything? Like I don't understand why we would even think that this person did anything. It's like, why? I mean, I really don't understand. And then the person that it turned out to be, I knew. There is a sentence in like about close to the end of the book. They make a statement about somebody that I'm like, okay, clearly this person has something to do with this because they made this statement. It's very obvious. So the fact that I kept seeing review after review of like how this book is so good and I didn't guess the ending and everything, I'm like, bull fucking shit. Like granted, yes, I didn't get the reasoning, like the reasoning of like why this person get it. Yes, I didn't see that coming because why would I see that coming? But who it was very obvious. Very obvious. Because it's like, this person lied about a big thing. Why did they lie about it? It was very obvious that it was it. And oh my gosh. I'm done ranting. But I could not stand this book. Like, I gave it a 2 only because of the fact that it did intrigue me at the beginning. At the beginning, I was actually very interested. I was like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. But then it got to a point where I was like, this character is dumb. She's dumb. Granted, I follow plenty of dumb characters, but I'm like, this is dumb. And all she does is like complain about being scared. And I'm like, then why are you here? I don't understand. You're not a professional, like, police or detective. You don't know these children. Like, she doesn't know who these people are, yet she's investigating. Go somewhere then. And she has this other part because her husband dies and she's like mourning him, and she's like still mourning him and everything like that. And it's just like, I kept thinking something was gonna happen about him, some type of big reveal about him, what he did to her. Nothing happens. Anyways, I didn't even tell you the synopsis. So her niece basically called her to come to, I guess, this university because one of her friends died, and they say it's a suicide, but she thinks it's murder. And then, like I said, then she just sticks around and tries to figure out who it was. And then another girl dies, and then it's like, okay, this is obviously murder. Okay, and that's it. She just tries to figure out why these girls are getting murdered and who did it. And it's just like, but why? You don't know these people. Anyway, I'm done. I know, I'm just ranting. Her Dark Lies. This book, I gave it a 2 just because it was interesting at the beginning and then got really boring. Like, about halfway through, I didn't even care what was going on. So this girl, she is getting married to this wealthy guy. Like, he's from Italy. He has all this money in the world, of course, and she's like a struggling artist. And they somehow get together. He used to have a wife. She died, I think, 10 days after, like, in their honeymoons. Like, they got married, they went on a cruise or something on a boat, and she ended up dying. She, like, fell off board. Well, now they're getting married, and it's a whole thing about, like, they're gonna go to Italy to get married at, like, his personal island or something like that. Well, when they get there, a whole bunch of stuff just keeps happening, and it's kind of hinted at that, like, maybe his wife that supposedly died did not actually die, and all this stuff, just weird stuff is happening. People are starting to drop dead. They keep saying, like, oh, it was just an accident, and apparently his family is into stuff, and yeah, that's about it. It's just, I don't know. I feel so bad, but it's just like, I just wasn't interested. Like, it was interesting at first, but then it got to a point where it was just like, just leave the island. I don't know why you guys are still there. They're still trying to have a wedding, even though somebody died. They're just like, yeah, we're just gonna still, like, get married. And it's just like, you guys can, like, move it. You guys are rich. You guys can just move it and, like, get the fuck out of that place, because, like, people are just dying left and right, and, like, power is going out, and there's about to be a storm. And she's questioning the whole time if she even loves him, and I'm like, then why are we here? So whatever. It's a whole bunch of miscommunication, basically. The Medicine Man. Oh, I talked about this one. This one is about a girl who goes to a psych ward because she tried to kill herself. I think it was like her 18th birthday or something, 18th or 19th birthday. She tried to kill herself. Her mom freaked out, made her get checked into a mental hospital. And while she's there, she ends up falling for this medicine man. And like I said in that video, I understand why she falls for him. It's called transference. Obviously, you know, she's gonna see this guy and think of him as a savior and stuff like that. Why he falls for her and risks his practice, I don't know. There's not any chemistry in these books. Like, I would understand if there was chemistry. There's not. He is cheesy, and basically it's just a 30-year-old that got really attached to a 19-year-old suicidal patient, and, like, they fall in love. Okay. Like, if you want to know more, I did talk about it in length, but this book was just kind of trash. It wasn't cute. I don't understand how people thought this was sexy, because the sex scenes weren't even good. They were cringy as all hell. So it's like, no. Cersei. This one, I gave this one a 3. I did technically like it. It was a little bit boring. This one is this is a mythology retelling about Cersei. She is basically, I mean, a god, demigod? I forgot which one it was. But she, I guess, doesn't technically have powers or something. Like, they don't think she has powers. And she's kind of useless. Her dad doesn't even like her. Like, everything. Well, it turns out she actually does have powers. She ends up making a mortal, civilian or whatever, regular human. She makes him immortal, and the reason she does it is because she ends up falling for him, and she's like, I don't like the idea that like he's gonna eventually die, and I don't want him to die, so like I'm going to make him immortal, so then this way he can be with me. And she ends up making some potions, and this is when she kind of figures out that like she's a witch or something like that, which I didn't know that there were witches in mythology, but I guess so. So she makes potions to basically woo this guy, be like, yes, you can now live forever, and we can be husband and wife. This dude does not want her. It's so funny too, because like he seems to really like they get along very well. She changes him. She didn't say it was her, because I think she would get in trouble, so she didn't say it was her or anything like that. They just think it's kind of a miracle that he's now immortal. And he wants to go after her cousin. Like, basically, it's just like, I want her cousin. And she gets so mad. So she decides to curse her cousin and makes her cousin a, like, sea monster. Well, they find out about this. And I guess Zeus banishes her to, like, this island. That she's now going to be on this island by herself, and that's her punishment. So for years on this island, she starts getting better at like magic and stuff like that. She starts getting, understanding how to do potions and stuff like that. And then like it just kind of continues. Like I said, it's not bad. It's just, I think it's just, I didn't really care about Cersei. Like, in all honesty, I feel like if this author ever comes out with like either a Medusa story or a Hades story, I will love those, because those are two, I guess you could say, characters that I'm like, yes, I want to know more. So not bad. It's just more of I just didn't really care about Cersei. I think Cersei was kind of boring. She was just on an island for the most part, and like changing people that would go on her island into like pigs. That was like her thing. And that was pretty much it. So, okay. Harpin Bridge. This one, I swear, I don't understand what's going on this month, but all the people, like all the authors that I'm like really excited for their books, because I've liked their previous books, so I'm like, okay, there's a good chance that I will like these books, have kind of been duds. I don't think this one is as bad as like the fucking Maidens. That one, it was horrible. This one is more of it was a little bit boring and a little bit, I just didn't care. So this girl, her twin dies. Supposedly she dies from suicide by jumping off a cliff. She doesn't believe it, and she confronts the like police officer that like I guess stopped her before, like an hour before she jumped off of this cliff. He supposedly stopped her and gave her like a ticket or something. So she's assuming like, you know something more. And the whole book is about her trying to get a confession out of him. Like she has a podcast or something, so she's been recording it the whole time. She's gonna write a book, and she goes there by herself, and just is like, I'm going to basically convince him to tell me the truth. And there is plenty of action in it, but it's so back and forth. Like, he says one thing, and then she's like, you're lying. And then he's like, yeah, I am lying. And then says another thing. And it's just a whole, like, what do you believe? What is the real truth? Like, And you just get to a point, at least in my opinion, that I'm like, I just kind of didn't care. And the ending was actually, I'm not gonna spoil it, but there is like a part, like the very, very ending, I was just like, how? There's no way. Like, no, there's no way. So like, I don't know. Like, this book was fine. It wasn't anywhere near like the book No Exit, which is like, I know that's kind of what he was doing. He was trying to do like another suspense thriller, and it just didn't work because I just didn't care about the characters, I guess, in a way. And she wasn't a badass like final girl. First, like No Exit, she was a good final girl. This one, she wasn't really a good final girl. She didn't even, apparently she wasn't even close with her twin. Like, she hadn't seen her in years, and it was just like such a weird thing of like why you would just assume like all this stuff and you haven't even seen her for years. But she was determined. She was like, no, she died. I know that she was murdered. You can't tell me otherwise. And it's kind of like, in reality, it's like, why would you assume that? You haven't seen her in years. You don't know her. And that's what the cop kind of kept trying her. He was like, you don't know her and everything like that. But she was determined, and like I said, she does get some answers. By the end of it, I tell you the truth, I don't actually know what the real answer is, because there was just so much, yes, this is what happened, but then no, this is not what happened. So at the end, I'm actually a little bit confused of like what the actual reality was. But okay, whatever. Never Let You Go. This one was okay. This is a 3. I did not like this one as much as her other one. I think it's called Those Girls. That one is really dark. It's about girls that like basically get captured and raped, and then they like move on, and years later it comes back to like get them again. So that one was like, thing. This one is about a woman who had an abusive husband. She gets away from him. She causes him to technically have an accident, and he gets put into jail because he ends up killing somebody by accident, like, you know, the whole manslaughter thing. Well, he is now out, and it's looking like he is again stalking her and doing some like weird stuff. And of course she has a kid, and her kid at this point I think is like 17, 18. So her kid really would like to have a relationship with her dad, because she doesn't really remember him being abusive, because he wasn't abusive like in front of her. So she's in a way kind of like, I would like to have a relationship. And the mother's like, I understand, but he's not really a good guy. You didn't know him like I did. Like, I try to protect you and stuff like that. And it's like just a bunch of creepy stuff is happening where you can't prove it. You're thinking that it was him, but you can't prove it. And there is a twist around the ending that I actually didn't see. I thought I knew what was going to happen. I thought for real, I was like, this is exactly what's going on. It's very obvious what's going on. And I was wrong. So I will give it that. I think it wasn't that thrilling. It was kind of basic, but the ending did actually make me think like, oh, I was actually wrong. Because I thought, I don't know, just the way that they were setting it up, I was like, it seemed very obvious what's going on. But no, apparently I was wrong. So like, I will give it that. The only really good one, this is like the standalone, because I've done some series and everything that I'm about to talk about, but like the standalone, this is the only good standalone I really read this this month, which is Local Woman Missing. This one is about basically 3 women disappear. So one woman disappears, and then 2 other, like a mother and daughter, disappear. And it starts to seem like you kind of wonder how they're connected, because they don't seem like they're connected, and apparently they are. So the daughter, the one that disappeared with the mother, she ends up leaving her escapee and makes her way back to the dad. And this whole book is about, there's like 3 or 4 points of views, and it slowly and slowly shows what happened. Like what happened to the one lady that like for the most part has no real connection, but you find out what the connection is, and then what happens to the daughter and the mother, which 100% didn't see it coming. I will give it that. I was so confused too, because there was one point of view that I was like, I don't really understand where this point of view, like what this point of view has to do with anything other than like just being a set of eyes. And it gets brought to light what happened like all together. And yeah, I will give it to this author. She definitely did a good like a 180, and she covered all her bases of how everything was connected. And it's just like, damn, it was really good. It was really good. It was very shocking. I highly doubt anybody will actually get the ending until the very end. It's like right before it actually was revealed, you were like, I know where this is going. I know exactly where this is going. But it was like the very end, right before it was revealed to like the characters, that it's like, okay, I see it. And I was very shocked. I'm not gonna lie. This book, 100%, like I kept hearing that it was good, but like I haven't been having that great of luck lately, that I was kind of disbelieving that it was gonna be good. And it's like, no, this book was great. I will 100% agree that like this book may seem generic to begin with. It's like, oh, okay, people are missing, you got points of views, obviously everything's connected, but it's like where it goes, it's like, oh, okay. So I really like this book. I think this book was great. So let's move on to basically the series. So I did the Hawthorne series, which is The Word is Murder and the Sentence is Death. Both of these were good. Other than the fact that, so both these books are about basically the main author. Like it's about the author. The author writes about himself. Of course, these are fictional stories, but he basically puts himself in the book, which I didn't notice it in the first book. I didn't know that that's what he was doing until I kind of read some reviews afterwards. And yeah, he writes himself in the book, and he basically acts like Watson. So he has Sherlock, which is this fictional character, and he follows him around while he figure out like a crime, and then he writes about it. And like that's the whole premise, is like he was basically drafted by this detective to write about him, which is kind of weird. But like the guy was like, hey, you're an author, you want to write about stories that like cases of what we do, and then you just follow me around. And he at first was kind of like, no, I'm not a true crime author. And he's just like, well, like, yeah, but you can write it in a way as if it's not true crime. And he ends up kind of getting interested in the case that he's in the first one. So he ends up reluctantly kind of doing it. And then the second book is kind of the same thing. He's just like, there's a case, he follows him around. He doesn't really actually like the detective. He thinks that like he's kind of an asshole and everything like that. But he gets very interested in the cases that he just ends up reluctantly following him around just for that fact. And that's basically what it's like, a Sherlock Holmes and Watson type of situation. It's really actually good. The only thing that I found very annoying once I noticed it was he self-promotes in these books like crazy. Definitely the second one. He self-promoted himself so many times, was talking about all his other books, and I'm like, dude, we get it. You have other books. You've done like screenwritings and you've been on production, like movie productions or something like that. But he talks about it a lot. Definitely in the second book, he talks about it so much that I was like getting annoyed, because it was just like, just talk about the case. I don't care about your other shit. I'm not going to go read them. Good that you've done screenwriting, cool. I'm glad that you've had a successful career, but it got to the point where it was just like, dude, are these books just a way for you to gloat because you're not doing a lot of case searching and anything like that? But there is a third one, which I will get, and supposedly this is supposed to be the last one, because in the actual book it says that there's supposed to be 3 books. So I'm assuming this is going to be the last one, which, like I said, I do like the concept. I do think that the cases are actually like, how do you say, cozy murder mysteries, where it's just like, it's a very mundane thing and it turns into this whole big twist. So like, I do like it, but like, dear Lord, could he not self-promote anymore? Because that self-promotion got really annoying. I was like, I don't care. Like, if I gotta hear about, was it something Silk, whatever that book is, if I gotta hear that another time, I'm gonna have to check my damn phone, because I heard about that book like 10 times and it was just like, dude, I'm not gonna read your book. Stop telling me about this damn book. Anyways, and then I also read his other book, which is The Magpie Murders, which is basically about a book within a book. So a editor gets a book for her client and she's reading it, and it's basically another situation. It's one of those detective books. So like, you have like 2 murders that you're basically investigating. So The Magpie Murders, which is what the actual book in the book is called, and it's about this detective, this German detective that, you know, does this detective stuff. Well, pretty much when she's about to be done with the book, she realizes that the ending is gone. And this is kind of where part 2 starts off. And she finds out that the author committed suicide. So they're like, fuck, we gotta find these last pages because we need to be able to publish this book. We need to see the ending. And she's trying to find these pages, cannot find these pages. And they're starting to think like, well, maybe we can just get a ghostwriter to finish the book and everything. She's like, no, like there has to be pages. And she starts to correlate that like his suicide was not a suicide, and that in his book is supposedly the clues to his murder and stuff like that. And everybody around her is like, no, like why would you just assume that? Like, you're getting a little caught up in this situation. So like, basically the second part of the book is just her trying to figure out whether or not he actually committed suicide and like where these last pages are. So yeah, it's basically, and then you end up actually finding out the rest of the book and stuff like that. So like, you're basically following 2 detectives, 2 different timelines, and like 2 different murders. It was good. I actually like that. I'm waiting for the second book. I have it on hold at my library. I'm basically just waiting for it to be released, and I will continue on with the series because I actually kind of like some like these somewhat classic like detective stories. But the problem about these detective stories is they can be very boring. Like the classic ones, I can't deal with the dialogue. I can't deal with old dialogue. So I will probably never ever read like a Sherlock Holmes book, Agatha Christie's book. I'm never gonna read those because I can't stand the old dialogue. But I like the theme of them. So this is kind of like my in-between. The next one, well, actually the next 3, no, it's 4. Yeah, the next 4 books are memoirs, and I'm gonna go through them real quick. So, Educated is about a lady who she grew up in a, oh my dogs. She grew up in a very unconventional household. Her dad was kind of a doomsday killer person, expecting the world to just end. Her mom was one of those oils people and thought of home remedies. She didn't even have a birth certificate. Like, that's how much they just lived off the grid. Well, she decides that she wants to kind of go to school. So she ends up getting a birth certificate, finally, and decides to go to school to get educated. And she ends up finding out that the way that she lived was not at all normal. And she starts figuring out that like it's just basic stuff. Like she went to college and she was getting kind of like bad grades, and she tried to like, I guess, study with one of the kids, and the kid is like, well, did you read the book? And she's like, no. She's like, how are you expected to know the material if you don't read the book? And then it's like, it like that in return literally didn't click for her, because I'm like, she's never gone to school. like, I guess not in traditional sense or something like that. So she didn't even understand the concept of like, you got to read the book, you got to follow the material, you got to follow the syllabus, then you will start to understand. Because she didn't understand why she couldn't understand what was going on. And she just gets more educated, more educated. This book was good. The part that like really got me is that she has an abusive brother, and she doesn't realize how abusive he was until she got older. She got away. She basically went abroad to like go to school. And when that happens, she ends up finding out, I think it was her sister or something like that, said that he was also abusive to her. And not sexually, I'm not meaning sexual, I'm meaning just like verbally and physically, he was a bully. And it comes to her mind of like, yeah, he was. Like, I never really realized that. I just, you know, he's my brother. Like, it's that whole thing of like, you basically just, since they're family, it's like, oh, it's okay. And it's not okay. She ends up like basically telling our parents like, hey, your son is a bully. You might want to fix him. And they just kind of disown her and everything. And it's just like, that part was the saddest part to me, was just like, yeah, because I dealt with that. So I'm like, yeah. And just sometimes you just got to walk away. And that was kind of the whole thing of like, sometimes being educated and having your eyes open just means that you got to shut other doors. And it was just like, that's a tough thing to swallow, but it's true. Escape. This one is another polygamous cult memoir about a girl who basically at one point manages to escape with like, I think 7 kids. She had 7 kids. She was married to a very high leader. And once things started going down with the whole like Warren Jeffs situation, she got the hell out of Dodge. And like, it was a very difficult process, but like, she just managed to do it. She took him to court and everything, which is like, I guess back then was really unheard of, because a lot of people, even if they got away, they a lot of times couldn't do court because they were scared that their kids would be taken away. And she ends up basically fighting the guy at court, and she won. And it's basically the whole what they do and how she ends up figuring out that like, yeah, you know, I deserve more than like being with this 50-year-old man, baby after baby. And she gets treated like shit from her sister wives. Like I know they say that like sister wives are such a blessing and it's such a good thing to like share their children and everything like that, but like there is so much jealousy and like power play, and she talks about it a lot. How about like how everything is very much a power play, and like supposedly you're not supposed to do that. Like, that is a sin to like talk bad about your sister or be jealous or anything like that, but yet that's literally what they do the whole entire time. And like, sex is a power, because if your husband wants to have sex with you, it basically means that you have somewhat power over the house, because you can kind of manipulate him to then manipulate the other girls. And if you don't have that, you basically don't have shit. And all the kids end up treating that mother that is treated like shit from the husband badly, and she ends up becoming worthless. And it's just like, and like a lot of them end up becoming like really depressed and stuff like that, because they have nothing. They're not worth supposedly anything. And it's just like, that sounds shitty. Glad she got away. And the next one is called The Lost Boys. This one is about Warren Jeffs' nephew. Like, I believe it was his nephew. And he basically, it's sad, his life was nothing but trauma after trauma. He got raped by Warren Jeffs at the school when he was young, to the point where he forgot. Like, he didn't really remember it until like later, but he kind of blocked it out. And he ended up him and his family, because his dad was like, I guess, the son of the prophet. So he was Warren Jeffs' brother, like older brother, I think. They end up leaving because he got kind of sick of everything, and like ended up taking, I think he had 2 or 3 wives, I think he did, and his kids, and just left, because he was just like, you know, this is not really what it used to be. Like, I'm tired of this shit. Like, I'm not going to pick you over my family, which is like really nice. Like, that was actually a very nice thing. But like, his dad literally was like, no, Like I'm gonna choose my wife and kids over this, and that's basically what happens. And he talks about his experience being out of it because he doesn't know what to do. Because when you're in this cult, you pretty much have a roadmap to what your life is going to be. So when he gets out, he doesn't understand what he needs to do. And he goes to public school, he looks weird because, you know, he doesn't have the new clothes and he doesn't at all know what to do. So he gets into drugs. I think his brother got into drugs to the point where he died. And turns out his brother actually was abused by Warren Jeffs himself. And it's this whole thing of like them taking Warren Jeffs to court for the sexual abuse. And yeah, that was his story, which was very interesting because it's like all the ones that I have consumed have all been about the women and about them getting married, having kids, like, you know, basically being treated like their property and stuff like that. That like hearing a male's perspective was really different. It was like, oh, he had a very different life in comparison to them because he wasn't forced into marriage and everything like that. And he was one of those kids that they talk about how like a lot of boys, when they get out, when they get pushed out of the cult, they end up going to drugs and stuff like that, which is what he did. And then the fact that he was raped by his Warren Jeffs is just, one, frustrating, but it's also just the most hypocritical shit because it's like, these are people that say that homosexuality is bad. Do not touch yourself. Save yourself till marriage. Like this whole spew of just control, bullshit, and lies. Yet you're molesting 4-year-olds in the bathroom. Like, make it make sense. It doesn't make no sense. You can't make it make sense, but it's just the fact that like these are the people that say they're most holiest people. I hear God. Everybody's horrible. They all need to repent. They need to pay their tithing, but yet I'm over here molesting kids. Like, and boys at that. So it's like, but you're saying homosexuality is a bad thing, but yet you're molesting little boys. I swear to God, Warren Jeffs, he needs to get, a lot of things need to happen to that dude. But anyways, and then the last little book series that I have read is the Off Balance series. I finished 2 of the books. I have 3 more to go, and I'm loving it. It is very taboo. It's about a young gymnast girl that gets involved with her Russian coach, and it's a bunch of taboo. It's very sexy. There's a lot of gymnast speech in it, which can get a little redundant. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of it in there, and it's like, I get it. That is her whole thing, and she's a gymnast, but I do glaze over some of the stuff. But basically, I'll recap the first 2 books. She gets to the gym. It takes them a long time before they actually do anything. It's very slow burn, which I appreciate. And they just kind of like a little bit flirt here and there. He's a dick of a coach. She's a stubborn gymnast that like thinks she's the best, and like the fact that now it turns out, no, you're not the best, you can do better. It's like she baffles her mind. She's like, oh my God, what do you mean I'm not the best? I have to do more work. And it's just like, yeah, you're not gonna just become an Olympus star just with the little shit that you've been doing. And because of that, they end up working together quite a bit because he's trying to get her to a certain level, because I guess she's technically behind. And the only reason she even got into the school is because her dad knew him, and they ended up striking up a deal and a contract. So he was basically obligated to get her up, which at first he was like, this isn't gonna work. You suck. You are not at the level. But he ends up working with her, and she gets better and better and better. And because they're so close together, there's a lot of sexual tension going on, and they end up getting together. And once the floodgates open, there was no going back. They do realize that it is a very wrong thing to do, but yet they can't help it. And he is, in the second book, he ends up getting married to his girlfriend of like years, Katya. And there's a whole conflict now of like, you married her, you need to be with her, why are you around me? And he's just like, I can't get enough of you, and it was a mistake. you'll see why. And it's that whole bullshit. But it's really good. I love it. Like I said, I'm on to book 3 and I will be finishing it because it's just the type of taboo I like. Like the Unrequited and like the Medicine Man, those sucked. This one is like, yes, if you're gonna pick any of the taboo books, pick this series out. Unless you really have a problem with the whole age gap thing, because there is quite a bit of an age gap, but like it doesn't really bother me because 1, it's fiction, and 2, it's like she's technically a consenting age, so it's like, yeah, I get it. It's like 20 years apart, but at the same time, oh well, it's fiction. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up. This was a very long video. I am very sorry. I did not mean for it to do. I did try to go as quickly as possible, but anyways, have a good day. Bye.